What a wonderful looking place! Vainqueur glanced at the enormous, steamy bath in front of him, bordered by natural stone walls and wooden pipes. The pagoda-like inn that oversaw the area overshadowed it from a hill above, blocking out half of the Sunday you could fit an army inside. His chief of staff observed, wearing only a toga fitting his wings and tail as he walked on the stone pathway. It's as large as a lake. Minion, what do they call it again? The dragon asked, touching the water with his claw and finding it to be just the right temperature. The locals had wisely left the place, offering it for dragon use alone. Onsen, your majesty. Could they not call it a bath? Vainqueur said as he slipped inside the hot, steamy waters, letting out a moan of pleasure. He couldn't put his finger on why, but it felt like lava. His mighty body caused the water level to rise up, swallowing stones and bonsai. Perfect! You have entered the onsen field. Your status ailments will be cured, and you will recover HP and SP at an accelerated pace. After saving the world from hunger with his new Tarisk feeding plan, Vainqueur had decided to take a short break on his trip across Outremonde. Since they had around 40 days left before Samhain, he thought he could afford some pleasure time. Minion, what are you waiting for? Vainqueur asked, as his manling didn't join him in the bath. It is not lava by any means, but it should do. Later, your majesty, the minion said, ever dutiful. I still have stuff to do before I can relax, reforge my perks, extract information from Magmel's soul, check up on Kia. What has that poor excuse of a paladin done this time? She's having withdrawal symptoms. Allison had to lock her in her bedroom to avoid a scene. Vainqueur sighed. After having opened a new portal between Murmurin and this country's capital, his chief of staff had summoned key minions to handle administrative matters. That was inevitable. Spending weeks in my naked presence has made her addicted to me. It happens to my minions all the time. His chief of staff said nothing, he alone had the strength of will to resist his Vainqueur addiction, and even then never for long. Your Majesty, I still think we should use this break to train a little. With Magmel's soul on hands, I have been able to locate the Farmer's EXP farm, and in all likelihood, we will face heavy opposition there. Minion, I am considering why we should even make a stop there. But that's the place where they level up, his minion protested. And instead of growing as it should have, my wealth has been slowly depleted. Vainqueur said, vowing to remind indebted Allison of how much she cost him. The money they received from conquering the country had barely returned his hoard to its pre-Akinapep size. Hunting fairies is good, but it makes us lose sight of this trip's true goal, gathering enough money to shame Ice Fang on Samhain. The few time we fought farmers, they did not drop any gold at all. I'm sure the locals will pay a heavy price to get rid of them if they do. Yes, I shall deign to burn that farm to the ground, Vainqueur interrupted. But I want you to focus on money-making quests first. Like my dodo trade plan. I admit selling homegrown male dodos to EXP-starved nations while maintaining a monopoly on the females should prove lucrative, Manling Victor said as if it wasn't obvious. But it will take months to breed a sufficient population, same as with opening our portal network to foreign trade and global tourism. Samhain will pass by in either case. Friend Victor, you do not see that we can leverage one of the most powerful forces in the world, Vainqueur said. Dwarf addiction. His chief of staff raised an eyebrow. Dwarf addiction. We have access to a whiskey sea, which from what I understand your species use as a substitute to dwarf consumption, Vainqueur said. I will have minions pump it dry, then sell bottles to your kindred. The Agarthans will be so glad that we spared them from dwarf addicts' depredations, that they will pay me a greater tribute. That's actually very smart, Manling Victor said, considering the matter. We could quickly pump the whiskey sea and sell cheap drinks to Gardy Magni and Bayron. I order you not to overdwarf on our own product though. One time was one too many. That's still going to take time to set up, his vizier said, always a pessimist. And I doubt we can sell enough bottles to grow your majesty's hoard in 40 days. What about conquering a new country? Vainqueur suggested. It worked wonders for me so far. There is a southern landmass which has yet to be settled at all, and which should be rich in natural resources, in particular gold. Vainqueur's head raised above the waters with interest, making the minion cough. But it's hell on earth in my home world. I cannot imagine how bad it must be in Outremont. I shall conquer Pryden in due time, Vainqueur said, unafraid. I welcome the practice run. For the greater hoard, no sacrifice is too low. Alternatively, we could go to Nagistan or the Jade Empire, Manling Victor said. They're the richest countries in the world, and Nagistan, in particular, pays well for quests. As acclaimed of Shesha, I could get us deals there. Yes, yes, I trust you to map out our destinations, Vainqueur replied dismissively. But I will accept no less than 1,000,000 coins per task. I am a star, minion, and you know it. We must increase our wealth standards. Manling Victor excused himself to prepare the trip, leaving Vainqueur alone. The dragon quickly rested against the stones like a crocodile on a riverbank. The experience couldn't match resting on his hoard, but it helped ease the pain from his wounds. The Tarrasque's minion conversion had left bruises. The dragon closed his eyes and enjoyed the warmth, his mind slipping into thoughts about the future. While he had sacrificed short-term wealth to revive his minions, such was the duty of an emperor to reward those who died for him. The dragon suddenly wondered what would happen to his empire once he reached godhood. While the place only served to fuel his hoard first and foremost, he had grown to enjoy ruling it. Could he keep doing so after passing the Valhalla trials? He was 3/4 of the way through after all. It burns. Vainqueur's eyes snapped open, as he recognized the voice. A dragon's voice. I warned you, you should have leveled up in Paladin of Mithras instead of Pyromancer, someone else commented. You would have gotten a fire immunity perk by now, instead of a mere resistance. And skill is one of your dump stats, a third, female creature said. Paladin would have boosted your strength and charisma. Vainqueur immediately pinpointed the source of the noise as behind the nearest stone wall. He immediately looked above and at the large bath beyond it. 3 smaller dragons occupied a steamy lake there, one black, one green, and the last one. Ice Fang! Vainqueur roared, bringing the 3 dragons' attention upon him. Vainqueur, his white-scaled rival roared back, extending his wings in defiance and throwing water all around. Oh, Vainqueur, the green dragon waved a hand at the emperor. Vainqueur identified him as Magnific, one of the guests at his latest bragging day and an adventurer he met while hunting the Blue Rose Legion. Great to see you. What are you doing here? Vainqueur glared at Ice Fang. You have come to sabotage me again. I am a ninja. Ice Fang hissed in response. I train in this city. Suboptimally, said the third member of the dragon trio, a black Wyrm with 2 long horns. Suffisant, Vainqueur remembered, her name is Suffisant. Why he chose a puny class with such a high skill threshold I will never understand. This puny class allowed me to dominate Vainqueur in our last spare. Ice Fang lied through his teeth. That is not how I remember it. Vainqueur replied angrily, now mostly out of the water with his 2 hands on the wall. To think that his rival would ruin his vacation by showing up unannounced. My minion had to beg me to spare your life. You will be the one begging on Samhain when my hoard humiliates yours whole in its shininess. Ice Fang showed his fangs. How is yours, by the way? Smaller than a hill I imagine. Bigger than a mountain. Vainqueur lied, refusing to lose face. Boys, can you tone it down? Suffisant asked, as the noise caused birds to fly away. You're making the minions flee. What are you doing with this silver lover? Vainqueur glared at her and Magnific. We joined his guild a while ago, Magnific said. The Silver Dragon Adventurer Company. We cooperate for quests and share the loot. Suffisant nodded. Money without risks. And no minion kickbacks. I thought you had better tastes, Vainqueur grumbled. How could any dragon worth their weight in gold join this second-rate frost dragon? Speak for yourself, you lost the Gold Slayer, Ice Fang taunted his rival. How much gold did he pay you for it? Or maybe did he pay you in lead? The Emperor's eyes saw red. You take that back. Come on, we are dragons, we are better than this, Magnific said, cheerful. You can fight on Samhain. Indeed, my net worth will speak for itself, Vainqueur replied haughtily, refusing to sink to Ice Fang's level of pettiness. The hoard that made even Furibon repent from his evil ways. Ice Fang replied dismissively, smirking arrogantly. Haven't you heard, Knightsbane? I have become the richest dragon in the world. And I would have become even richer were it not for that goblin. The previous daimyo hired us to save his empire from some goblin warlord, but when we arrived, he had already been eaten and replaced. Suffisant explained the situation to Vainqueur. We complained to the new goblin minion administration, who reimbursed our travel costs and offered us free vacations as apologies. Ah! Vainqueur mocked Ice Fang, rejoicing at having taken a quest right under his nose. I swear, when I find my heroic crest, I will make you choke on your arrogance, the frost dragon hissed. A heroic crest like the one I received from Voton Dragonbane. Vainqueur raised his head with pride, as the other dragons looked at him as if he had grown more heads than a Zime. You defeated Dragonbane. Magnific had stars in his eyes. You can get a heroic crest from defeating a farmer. Suffisant asked, only interested in growing stronger. Even if you had the perks needed to see them, the sight of my, Vainqueur took a deep breath, 75 levels would have left you blind. Lies. Ice Fang complained. Let me check, Suffisant's eyes widened. Augustus 30, Witchfinder General 14, Kaiser 17, Dungeon Breeder 10, and Geomancer 4. 75. Vainqueur pumped up his chest, happy to receive the spotlight he deserved. What kind of subpar build is that? Suffisant said, half amazed, half mockingly. Yes, Vainqueur, how do you get anything done? Magnific replied, astonished. The Emperor frowned, astonished by the reaction. Excuse you. I know you are a pioneer in the dragon system, but your classes are all over the place. Suffisant said. You do not even try to optimize. Why should I optimize perfection? Vainqueur pointed out the obvious. Your argument is illogical. Dragon perfection can always be built upon, Suffisant replied. I still think it is better to cover our natural weaknesses than increase our strength, Ice Fang argued, seemingly almost as annoyed by the other dragon's arrogance as Vainqueur himself. I solved my skill weakness and fire vulnerability. Soon, I will become immune even to fairy. You can become immune to fairies? Vainqueur asked, his contempt for his rival overcome by curiosity. After all, fairies and dragons had warred for so long that they had become vulnerable to one another. If Voton Dragonbane could overcome this problem, so could Vainqueur. I have, by becoming a priest, Magnific boasted. One of the manling gods provides fairy resistance at level 17, which can be increased to immunity with the right magical item. A priest. Vainqueur was aghast. You became the minion of a manling. Far from that. I made the goddess Leone my minion, and now she gives me beautiful spells whenever I order her to. The green dragon proudly showed a small pendant around his neck, representing a shield and a pen joined together. Alongside fairy resistance, as the goddess of might, she can provide a strength bonus equal to my priest level, on top of magical buffs. We calculated that he could deal thousands of damage with swords if he gains perfect proficiency in them, Suffisant added, losing Vainqueur's interest with her technicalities. Hence why he took levels in Paladin too. I have to follow a code of minion deontology, help manlings solve their problems, but this is just a technicality, Magnific said dismissively. I hope that they solve this design flaw soon. I agree, why should dragon class features require that you help lesser beings? Suffisant shook her head. At least you have it easy. I have to garden and tend to forests to keep my Vestal of Sibylle perks active. Stop complaining, you can use your vitality as your main stat for spellcasting instead of that useless intelligence, or skill. Skill is not useless. Ice Fang snarled. You have seen the jutsu I can use with it. Yes, we know, you always land critical hits, Suffisant replied dismissively. But once I get crested, I will be the one capable of turning the raw forces of nature into my minions. I wonder if which wouldn't be better as your new class after getting past level 30, Magnific pondered. Chronomancer is very powerful, but difficult to level up in and runs on intelligence, while Witch uses charisma and meshes better with Vestal. She should get Bard to buff herself up. Ice Fang said. Like a ninja. I still do not understand why these deities refuse to claim us, Magnific whined. Imagine the stats we could have if we were claimed by all 12. Yet not one of them accepted. Vainqueur watched the trio argue about numbers, stats, and values, clearly having lost sight of what truly mattered. My fellow WIRMS, he spoke up, have you forgotten that all classes are good, so long as you are an invincible dragon? Yes, obviously, Magnific admitted, but some classes are classier than others. Your dungeon breeder has 0 fighting applications, Suffisant added. Because you lack imagination. Vainqueur defended his hard-won levels. I tamed the strongest minion in the world, and soon I shall breed an army of them. I can easily enthrall any animal with the right prayer, and I can create powerful minions from seeds, Suffisant said. Seeds. They are not as powerful as a fisherman's minions though, Magnific added. That perk, no matter how powerful, does not make up for the 19 useless levels that come before it. Are they always like this? Vainqueur asked Ice Fang as they continued arguing, his rival seeming to share his frustration. Sadly, the Frost Dragon replied. I fear that once they get past level 30, they will become unbearable. You can still arrange things a little, Vainqueur, Suffisant said, after realizing that the bigger dragon had lost interest in the conversation. While it is true that you can never achieve our power once we reach your level, if you reach my level, Vainqueur pointed out. Considering their lack of dragon common sense, he did not believe it likely. But if you take levels in Crusader now, classes and perks matter, but not as much as how they are used, and by whom, Vainqueur replied. Look at me. I am me. Why should I gain new classes when those I have already allowed me to prevail time and time again? Magnific and Suffisant exchanged a glance. I do not get it, said the former. Do you mean that you can gain powerful personal perks when using suboptimal classes? Vainqueur shook his head, annoyed at his dragon brethren. Couldn't they understand that the only classes that mattered, were those making them richer and more glamorous? Who cared who had the highest statistical score, when they already had the perfect measure of one's worth in a hoard? Such were the woes of a visionary. His impact on dragon society had unforeseen side effects. Anyway, my wealth will prove that my path is the best, Vainqueur declared proudly, preparing to return to his bath. Leaving so soon, Vainqueur? Ice Fang hissed. Have we touched a nerve? Are you afraid that your class combination pales before mine? Even the best classes in the world cannot turn silver to gold, Vainqueur taunted him. But the worst of them can turn gold to lead. The red dragon turned around, glaring at his rival. Careful. You sound suicidal. You could not best me in combat, and I am sure you could not best the Gold Slayer either. Ice Fang persisted in his madness. Even with fewer levels, I am better optimized. I can take you anytime. Hey, stop. Magnific interrupted both before they could come to blows. There are more civilized ways to settle your feud. Like a minion battle. That will not do, Ice Fang replied, lightning cackling between his eyes and that of his nemesis. "What about a quest then?" Suffisant said. "We pick a quest, and we see who can solve it the fastest." Vainqueur considered the proposal, an idea coming to mind. "If you insist," he said. "There is this fairy farm I have been meaning to burn.